Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly. This is episode number 105. We are here today on a Friday night. I'm here with Arnie, author of PalantirBullets.com. I am here with Vince at Vince's Bullish on Twitter. And we're here with a guest who has not been here for a while, but he is back in the Purple Studio. Mr. Sachin is here with us again. So we've got a lot to talk about today with one of the OG members on episode 1 of Palantir Weekly, which is Sachin. Before we get into Palantir, obviously we had a lot of stuff that happened this week. Karp is releasing a book. He did an interview at Axios, did an interview with CNBC. Shyam Sankar did 2 different interviews. You got, statements that the company should be worth $60 billion. We have a lot going on. Before we get into it, macro. S&P 500 is at 482. NVIDIA is closing in on $600. QQQ at all-time highs. It seems like a lot of money is being pummeled into the market, even though there's still $6 trillion on the sidelines. Thank you all for being here. Coach Strap, thank you for being here. Blake, Matt Money, you should be on the podcast, but you're in the chat. I'm sure you'll be here soon. Let's start off with you, Sachin. What the hell is going on in this market? Why are we hitting all-time highs on the S&P 18 days into the year? And is this a little bit of a bubble that's too quick, too soon in the market, and we need to be a little cautious before we participate in the rally that we're seeing after 2 months of a pretty good rally in 2023?
So let me start from the last one. Is it too soon to start? Okay. See, that's the answer. Nobody knows when the time to start. I think everybody has to make up their own mind. There are people who are very edgy and there are people who are very jumpy at this time. So I think that answer, my idea is I'm all in. So yeah, to me that's
you have
that's
no cash on the side. You have no cash.
I have no cash on the side. Yeah, I'm actually even using 2-3% margin at this particular time. So yeah, I'm all in. Okay. Having said that, like I mentioned, I already taken some money off from the table to ensure that I have expenses covered for rest of the year. Okay. So now the second part is, is that the market is going on high. See, look at I have this philosophy. When I talk about Chinese market, I say that Chinese market, you just read the lines, don't try to read between the lines. Okay. And US market, it's entirely opposite. Never read the lines, always read between the lines. Okay, so if you see in terms of what is happening, so I've seen that consistently there is an institutional ownership increasing in several of my holdings. Okay, now when you see the action in pre-markets and after hours, you see that stocks are generally up, which is mostly the time when institutions buy. If you see the volume in the after hours and pre-market, it is slightly higher than what it used to be. Okay, so that is telling me that big money is buying. Okay, now the question is it a bubble territory, guys? I mean, I have lived through .com. Okay, and we all have seen 2020 EV and all the, so guys, I mean, this is not a bubble yet. Okay, I mean, a lot of companies are still at 10, 15, 20 PE, and they're very good companies, zero debt. Okay, I mean, this is definitely not yet at bubble territory. It could be expensive for a lot of people because, like I said, value is not a hard math, it's a science. People try to, there is a very famous quote, everybody knows the price, few people knows the value in Wall Street. And that's the reality here, is you have to decide. Like, for example, if today I have to compare 2 companies, for example, between NVIDIA and AMD. Okay, both are in chip market and both are actually very good companies. But when you listen, the senior executives of different companies, they specifically say, we are ensuring we get as much supply from NVIDIA we want. Okay, they take the name NVIDIA. I mean, when you look at AMD product is very enticing. I mean, AMD is one company that has finally managed to get CPU and GPU working together like no other company has ever done. Intel has never got it. And to be honest, NVIDIA didn't manage to do it. Okay, they have a product that is very compelling. And if you go into the data center, you know that AMD chips are cheaper than Intel chips. Okay. So there is a compelling proposition. They have money, they have good leadership. They will eventually catch the market. It's a market that is going few or maybe 10 or 20 folds from here. But are they in a position that is similar to NVIDIA? The answer is no. Okay, so now the question starts in this summing is that when you are in such an onset of a market, Every CEO is telling we are going to spend this much money on AI. Every startup is saying we are an AI startup. Everybody wants AI in their home. Okay, when you are in this kind of situation, what a fair multiple will look like, I don't know. If tomorrow AMD or Nvidia is able to sell even half they are telling to sell at this point of time, both companies will be 3 to 4 times from here. If AI baby, so this is very difficult time to actually tell what a bubble is. I remember, and there is a very famous case study on this is when I think it was Ben Bernanke in 1996, and he made a statement that the markets are in bubble territory. Okay, and everybody was very uh, like okay shaky that okay we have never seen markets like this. There is another 1987 crash coming, and then 97 we had Asian crisis and we had long term capital management, and yet 99 I think stocks went like 3 4 5 few stocks like 10 20 times.
Right.
I was there. So
But
I
the
mean,
Nvidia
is
run
it?
up this week, which I think was the epicenter for all this. I mean, I know they announced some new products and they got some China revenue, but they're up 20% in 10 days. Like, my question is more like pure techno. Do you think that is sustainable? I get that Nvidia is a monster and they're going to be even bigger than they are today, but in 10 days, is that reasonable to expect?
See, it depends how you look at it. Like for example, last time, every time Nvidia has made that kind of run, we see that it has seen some pullback, but it eventually cover that and it makes new high. So is that supposed to happen? That's supposed to happen. The question is, the run like this in 10 days, see, the information they have given, the market has to adjust it. What they are saying that market is hotter than and we have more revenues for revenues coming in future. So yeah, I mean market has to adjust for it. So the run is hot. I mean, when would you expect a company to do like this? When they are leading a transformative trend, when they are the leading product category,
Right.
when they are cash flow positive, and when everybody wants to have a pixie dust from them. They all the checklist is true in terms of Nvidia. Can Nvidia drop tomorrow to 300? Yes, it can drop to, because when the companies like this the growth is always volatile, and that's the problem with the growth investing. But for Nvidia to drop to 300, a lot of companies also have to drop half of their price as of today, because to Nvidia cannot drop to 300 easily until and unless they are running a scam or something inside and that nobody is aware of, which is very
Right.
highly unlikely given the high the high standards they have always kept. Okay, so to drop a stock like that, it has to be mostly macro breakout somewhere something has to break.
Let
Okay,
me
in
get let me
those
get
kind
Arnie
of
in here. Arnie, your thoughts on the macro right now? Do you agree with Sachin that like, look, the market's ready for more growth?
I would say, as we mentioned, the market is clearly getting hotter. It was very hot last week, a couple of weeks ago, with market being an extreme grid territory. You know that I like that chart, that indicator quite a lot. And it was nice to see that we had a moment of relief a couple of days ago. We even were almost to neutral, and now the grid is getting back to extreme grid. The first feeling we have when we see something like that is, okay, the market is expensive, I just wait. And that is generally true, but we also have to think that people being greedy is exactly the condition you also need to keep running. So especially because there is also a lot of cash in the sidelines that you like to report. I don't remember now how big it was, the market money funds you shared, but each time it's like, holy shish, so much money is still waiting for being deployed. I think this fact that the market is going up, there is a positive narrative mainly backed by AI, which affects the big tech in particular, but will also affect a lot also as maniacs of Palantir. This is actually a good narrative to make people interested in the market again, after having been psychologically worried and traumatized of, oh, you can't invest because interest rates are high. So this dynamic makes people more interested, makes executives more confident, and at the end of the day, it sustains this feedback loop between things moving, people getting more excited. So I encourage everyone to be always very careful in where she puts the money into. But overall, this is one of those kind of moments where I see the market is getting hotter. I don't feel, oh, now is too expensive, I'd better stay out.
Right. And speaking of valuations, I think we'll get into our first topic of the day. Obviously, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Vince, you're going to comment on this first one that's here. But Karp made some comments. He said a lot of stuff. We'll react to a bunch. But this was the first one that I think grabbed everyone at the Davos summit about market cap and valuation. So let's hear him talk about this. And then, Vince, we'll start with you.
Well, we're at 84% of the top 50 startup of tech people now. This is basically pre-AIP, pre-AI. What do you think is going to happen? Like, my company is worth between 35 and 40 billion dollars. I'm pretty optimistic we're going to continue to grow and get bigger. Okay, at 60 billion dollars, you are on that list. Okay, it's very likely we'll be on that list. Like, any one of the products we built would be the #1 startup in Germany. Any one of them. We have 5. Our least successful product would be, so it's like, and if we're
so 2 things on that before you go, Vince. Number 1, he's making this argument when he was asked about startups, basically saying, why the hell would you want to work at a startup versus Palantir? Because all of these guys are trying to do AI. We are AI. And so like the idea of working at a mission-driven company over these startups, if you're a really good engineer, it probably makes more sense for Palantir. Number 2, I think psychologically, once NVIDIA passed 500, the market was willing to give them 520. 530, 540. Once they're above 550, it's, as Sachin was saying, it's a lot harder to go back down to the 500s because now the market has psychologically accepted that. I think Karp's making the point here that when you're at, 60 billion, it's just a snowball effect as it keeps going and going because now the market understands the product. There's more institutional exposure and the floodgates open. What were your thoughts about him kind of putting out a price target of a doubling of the stock? Did you read into that any unique things for why he said 60 billion? And how did you kind of interpret why he said 60 billion for the market cap?
I'm sure that he said it because he sees his own numbers and he's very, very bullish on what's happening. And this is what he was legally allowed to say. He even messed up. And I don't know if he said it's pre-AIP. I meant AI, And
by the way, Coach Strap with a good comment in the chat. I mean, yeah, Snow is 60. Maybe that 60 billion number came from he was looking at industry rivals and they're at 60 billion already. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, by the way, on the macro, is it just me? Like my portfolio was trashed last week and I was looking at what's at all-time highs and, Airbnb is not at all-time highs, SoFi not, Palantir, why not send some bullishness our way? So it feels like it's only the Magnificent Seven that is rallying and I want to see some bones sent our way to, retail shareholders. I would hate to see a year where it's only the Magnificent Seven again that goes up and the rest of the stock market is flat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sachin, your thoughts on Karp saying 60 billion, we're going to get there. What do you think?
2 things, Amit. First, just let me react to the wins. What my quick reaction on the big tech reaching high. My idea is like people are running for safety. They want to participate in, but they want to participate in safely. And there's a lot of index funds, so that's what the volume weighting is probably going to big tech. And I think people might realize at some point of time that it's probably need to rotate. So that's first reaction. The second is, see AIP, as much I know, in the digital arena is one complete product in enterprise setting. Okay, you can put a lot of things together. See, you talk about, say, Cloudflare or you talk about CrowdStrike. What they do a piece. Okay, in order to do another piece, they need another company, which probably could be Snow, which probably could be. And so think about this: 10 companies working together, and now 10 people working together. Who is going to maximize their profit? Everybody will try to maximize their profit. So there is a lot of friction in terms of how things are optimized. Now think of AIP. AIP is a full tech stack. That means that internal friction for that thing is less, but now you are buying one big thick tech stack. So that is going to take some time. So is the product good? Yes. So somebody who's building the product, somebody who's selling the product, and also seeing that people are spending money on things which are pretty much vaporware, I think it's a fair statement to say that company has a long way to go. And as of today, with whatever power they have, they can immediately double the output. Okay, should the market allow them. Okay, this is first time Alex Karp has actually made a very clear take that they are going to serve more client. Currently they are serving, they are prepared for it. He also made a statement a few days back is that they are fundamentally reorganizing how company approach the AI customers and markets. Okay, that means there is a lot of introspection internally, that how we sell our product, how we approach, what is engaging with client. We all have seen the kind of engagement AIP has created with a lot of customers. We have not seen that kind of engagement before AIP. I mean, there people were doing some foundry and there were some boot camps and all that, but we never saw that kind of excitement. Suddenly people are saying yes, it's a product, okay, that can be used immediately, and that's a big thing. Now valuation part, okay, now we are also need, Palantir will never be valued like OpenAI or other companies. OpenAI will always be on the higher side because they are the first company. First, they have a consumer product. Second is they are the first company who captured the imagination how AI is to be consumed by a normal consumer, both in enterprise as well as in their daily life. So they will always draw that premium going forward. AIP is trying to do the same in terms of enterprise customers, okay, but AIP at this point is not consumer product for individual consumers in general. Okay, so AIP and Palantir should be valued a little higher given the momentum they have, kind of product they have. I mean, the company is zero debt, but they will always have less multiple compared to OpenAI, in my opinion. Back to you guys.
Arnie, your thoughts on $60 billion market cap potentially being achieved?
Well, look, typically when I analyze a company and the CEO says something like that, I'm more on the idea, oh, you're just selling the company, you come artist. Actually, this is a comment I've been receiving a lot ultimately, of Karp being a con artist. Oh, reminds me of SBF, stuff like that. And I agree with that sentiment that can emerge, unless you really know Karp and you know that this his way to actually release something that he has inside, but he needs to be constrained, like he said in an earnings call, like a caged animal in a 1960s zoo. So, okay, 60 billion. What is that? That implies basically 70% more. He feels that that valuation would be not absurd, and how we get there, because the question is, okay, but can Palantir potentially be worth already that? And I think it's not absurd to think that. Why? Because right now the multiples are already quite low compared with months ago. Remember when there was a real hype, Palantir was trading almost at 20x EV sales. Palantir now is at 13x EV sales, and Snowflake is at 17. So these are ready to say that for Karp, probably something closer to 20 is the right multiple. And also consider, as we mentioned weeks ago, that now analysts currently expect Palantir to grow around 20%. So this implies this combination of higher growth that probably Karp expects than analyst, combined with a relatively higher multiple. That's how we could get there. And also Karp mentioned some hints that actually also backed this thought. When he was talking about reorganizing the company, he dropped the hint of, oh, I know you wanted to come here skiing, so come to Europe to ski because it's cheaper and maybe better. But no, you will not be able to do that. That was matched again with the idea of restructuring the company.
Yeah, he said our U.S. commercial product is growing so much that we might have to restructure, rebuild the company. What are your kind of thoughts on that as you're talking?
Well, also here I received quite a few comments on, oh, should we be worried about that? And my question was, why should we be worried? Like, it's literally telling you, look, things are going so well that our existing structure is not built to actually support all this growth. So we need to change something. The things I think that will change is mainly on the incentive side. I think no, not a thing. I remember some quarter results ago, they mentioned that they would have started linking all the SBC to the success of AAP. So I think this is in this direction. And also in terms of how they really approach the go-to-market and how they target the entire company. They said previously, we focus all the company to AAP, when it was starting to booming. I think right now what Karp hinted with the idea of forget going skiing in Europe is this more, okay, now this thing is exploding in the US. I want everyone so focusing on building the business in the US, because if that works, Europe would follow. You basically, Karp, what he's doing is concentrating all the resources, all the focus on making the thing work that works. It's like when you have multiple formats as a content creator, you don't want to have your mind to detach. You want to focus your effort into the format that really works.
Yep.
If that really works, then also the others will follow, but it's like 70-80% of your focus needs to be on what really works. So I consider all of this a very positive hint, and we were discussing about how the stock was relatively expensive after the Q3 results. I think we are in the opposite direction now. We are essentially at the price of before these Q3 results with a lot of more substance. So I personally think right now we are in the cheap territory, and I'm acting with my money.
So let's transition that into this conversation right here. There's a good comment by CodeStrap. Since we're talking about valuation, let's talk about earnings. Q4 earnings is coming up. We'll have a proper, like, real deep dive preview episode the week before February 5th, which is when it's happening, 5 p.m. 5 p.m. after hours, it'll be happening. Sachin, let's start with you. CodeStrap says, in my opinion, there's no way in hell Karp can make these comments and then shit the bed this earnings. The lawyers were probably like, oh my goodness, Alex. So it seemed like the big tell. One other question on this earnings thing is, to me, the biggest metric is guidance. Even if they guided for $598 to $602 million in revenue, let's say they're bringing 603, right? $1 million beat, nothing too crazy. The guidance for 2024 is what I think the street cares about. Like, the only thing the street cares about is, are you growing at least 20%? And if you're growing at 25%, we can justify the multiple. And if you're growing at 30%, holy shit, growth has come back. If they guide for 17% growth, which is, I don't know, 2.4 billion, 2.5 billion, I don't know what that is. It seems like the stock is going to tank. What are your thoughts on the most important metrics going to earnings and how cocky and arrogant Karp is being right now before earnings coming up?
So, Amit, if you remember our very first discussion or even our very first Palantir Weekly, one thing we consistently said that why Palantir beats guidance almost every earnings, and we say they sandbag a lot. Okay, so you absolutely agree with you that what's the guidance is going to be? Are they finally going to make some bold guidance or not? If they are not going to make some bold guidance, like I said, yeah, it's good sign and niche company, but not transformative in a way we want it. So there has to be a time when they have to make a bold guidance. And think about it. This year we are going to start rate cuts. This year we are also going to have at least some sanity back in administration and management in how government has to spend money, especially in terms of AI and other things. Commercial, most companies have committed that they are going to invest more on AI front. So if you are not going to make bold statement now, then when? So I agree with you that the guidance has to be strong and it has to be above market expectation and significantly above market expectation. I mean, you see what Nvidia is doing. People were saying, okay, let's raise the guidance by 30%. And then they beat that shit by 30% again.
Yeah.
Okay, so in these kind of markets, and you are saying you are the premium enterprise AI company, and then you give me a soft guidance. Yeah, I think I don't expect that. Okay, I mean, if he is getting cocky, I think I would really, my message to Alex Karp is very simple. Please bring that cockiness in your guidance and then get your team to achieve it.
Correct.
Okay.
My
I've been in
my message would be, please bring the cock and forget the inness, because that is also very special. No, I'm just kidding. What number are you expecting for revenue growth? Are you expecting 25%? Like, what are you expecting?
I mean, I would expect 30%. Like when I say bold,
Really?
really. I mean, see, 17% was last year. Last year was shitty, and when market was just trying to understand what to do with AI and all those things, and these things were coming, and now the product is mature. Okay, I mean, 25. If they say 25%, to be fair, I'll be slightly disappointed.
Arnie, how are
would
you
not.
thinking? Because I don't think they're gonna guide 30. Maybe I'm not bullish enough, but I don't know if that's happening. What do you think, Arnie?
I would love to. I personally don't think so, but because
So what do you
I
think
see
they're gonna
more.
guide? Put a number on it. What do you think?
Well, now we're getting like a 20 for this quarter. I think they will guide for an acceleration, like they will guide for 23 and
I was
deliver
gonna say
something
22,
more.
23. I think that's where they're gonna guide.
I
yeah.
think the goal here is to create momentum on the expectations and then to exceed them. Essentially, what Karp is willing to do, in my opinion, is crafting the story that Palantir beats expectations. Well, I would love if Palantir would pull at an Nvidia. I prefer to be conservative so that I'm not anchored to that.
See, 30, I mean, like 20% to me was when they were doing. So initially, like when you remember when they made the statement in 2021, 30% for next 4 years or 5 years. Okay, that time they were only having this foundry to sell. Okay, then last year they cut the guidance and there was no AIP, and there was not a lot of acceptance of Gen AI in the first part of last year. Okay, now you have that. You have everybody committing their grandma's jars money for AI. Okay, now if they don't do 30%, yeah, I think I mean they are too safe to play.
I mean,
I mean,
sorry, Sachin,
yeah.
I have a question for you connected with
Tell me.
what you mentioned previously. So we know that everyone is throwing a lot of money into Nvidia, but not only the stock, also on the real hardware. And there has been a little bit of discussion of how this money spent on hardware would translate into software. There were some hints months ago of for every $1 spent on hardware, you get like $7 spent in software. Then you had Kati Wood doubling down. Then you had Daniv's even saying like something like 30, 40, if I remember correctly. But the core idea is for every amount of dollar you spend on hardware, you end up spending a multiple on AI software. So what's your, if you have a number or just an expectation, or you can better express what you think could be this translation from all the money being spent on Nvidia, then how that translates into, okay, this becomes AI software revenue.
So I don't have the exact number. Let me tell you my view is. My view is that whatever that number is going to increase. And let me tell you why in a very simple way. See, what AI is doing for us. Now it is writing simple routines and softwares for people where manual jobs were. No. Okay, that means it is doing far bigger areas of work. I'll tell you a story, and that probably will tell you. I mean, so I joined a job as a digital strategy lead for a very large company. It was during the COVID time. And so you join a company, you get a company's laptop. My job was in London, but I was asked to pick a laptop in my KL office. And the people here were not aware what I'm going to work. So they gave me a laptop that was 8 years old and the keyboard was broken. Think about it. I mean, I'm going to lead a data strategy for a company that is 65 billion market cap. And there was so miscommunication in a remote working environment that people were not even aware of that. Due to personal circumstances, I left that job after 2 months. I mean, still had a good relation. They came back to me and they say, why don't you join as a consultant? And so I joined that same job as a consultant 4 months back. And same situation happened. I had to go to London for my job, but I have to pick laptop from KL office. And I again got a laptop, which was broken and which was 8 years old. And this is funny that before this laptop was assigned to me, I actually shared them the last incident happened with me. And that still happened. So what is the problem here? The problem here is having human in the story.
Mhm.
Okay, and that is what people don't realize, that in big tech and in a lot of these areas, having human in support function is actually a bottleneck. So if you are saying that somebody is spending $7 on software, because there is a bottleneck that human, as much human is involved, that means the money that is spent on that services is actually kept by the involvement of human. And as you start raising it, more and more money will be spending on that, because human cost more than the software. So that's why I believe that this number is actually going to increase. Okay, so at this particular point, I think people, and again, I mean, I have a view. Nobody knows the future. My view is very simple. Okay, I wrote a board paper, and everybody was asking me like, okay, what's the view is? And this is before the LLMs came in. I said, I give you two scenarios. One scenario is that you have the world's best dashboard. You can see everything you want to. Right? The another scenario is you do not have a dashboard. There is something that exists which makes decision for you, and it makes all 99% decisions for you. And for the high priority 1% decision, it tells you what are the decisions, what are the solutions, and what are the trade-offs. Which solution you would prefer? Because for enable the solution that I just described, you need an operationalized AI. And at that particular time, the feedback I get is, we like this, but it's just not possible. Now that thing has changed in last 2 years.
Right.
There is a lot of operationalized decisions. So thing is, what happened to that dashboard? So those dashboards have disappeared, but you are doing a lot of analysis in the back. And when you replace some old technology with new technology, people need high bar of assurance. That means if you were doing 5 activity to do a decision before, and now you replace it with AI, you will put more checks and balance. You will be do 20 things now. So that expenditure on that hardware is actually going to be higher than what it used to be, because you are doing more activities in the same work you used to do, and you are also doing new work.
Now, Sachin,
back
you're
to you.
right on the macro argument around AI. You're 1000% correct, but 30% growth means that they're converting. Like they did 300 bootcamp clients. So let me ask you guys this question, because I was talking about this the other day. They did 300 bootcamp clients in Q4. I think that's reasonable. Sham said 400. Let's just assume 300. What percentage of that did they convert? Remember, last quarter, they got 38 net new clients, 8% quarter-over-quarter growth. I would assume they're getting to at least 50 this quarter. So I'm conservatively saying 10%, which I don't even know. I think that's kind of optimistic. 10% conversion in a sales process is a decent amount. Of those 300 means we get 30 new clients for AIP. For you to say 30% growth, that means we have to be doing 600 boot camps per quarter and converting almost 20-25% of them. So my question is, do you think the go-to-market is scaled enough already for them to issue that 30% guidance? We know the market opportunity is there, but do you think by this quarter they're ready to issue the guidance that they can attack it?
So Amit, your statement is a bit implicit, because your statement implies that all the growth has to come from new clients. Okay, first the consumption at the existing client has to increase also. That's what I was trying to say, that the activity you are doing, you first the revenue with existing customers has to increase.
The net dollar
activity
retention
you
essentially has to go up.
Yeah. Okay, so for example, like you remember the case of BP. They started with BP in terms of production management. Okay, but then they extended to BP in the renewables also. So first, what you are doing, what your initial use case you were doing, you expand the base of that use case, or in a software, as we say, the consumption of that use case. Then you create new use cases at the same client. Then you go for new clients. Okay, so if I take the case of like those 300 or 400 clients, okay, see, they need to do two things. First, get them on board. So that means you really need to find one of the thinnest tier use case that they can immediately sell them now. Okay, so for example, like when I was in one of the company and we were trying to think and partnership with Palantir, and then I was funny to learn that one of the support function came to me and they said, oh yeah, we are looking to hire Palantir finance for our internal finance activities. And it was funny because that means they have done a due diligence. Okay, so what is happening is you need to find that the thinnest tier that you can immediately sell, and then immediately how to expand on it. And that particular time, it becomes very important what your peers are saying. That means what your clients are saying, the activity that we listen nowadays. So that whole cycle of bringing client on board and expanding the consumption on client base has to be faster and shorter. So if you are onboarding client faster, if you are shortening the time in which use cases are scaled and their number increases, if you are increasing the consumption of existing use cases in existing client and you are selling new use cases, okay, to the existing client, yeah, 17-20% they are doing without that. So I don't buy 17-20%.
That's
And
a fair
if they
point.
don't
Fair
reach
point.
30% with that, I mean, yeah, I think there is something wrong in execution.
Vince, your
Well-
thoughts on what you think for Q4 earnings?
Yeah, I would want to guess 25% they will guide for, and I think that they're going to beat it. And I also just want to chime in here that I think that some aspects of AI can be bullish, but Palantir is not scaling as fast as we think. So that means that they will have a much longer and more sustainable growth. So let's say that maybe NVIDIA will have like a very high peak, and then people buy the enough chips, and then NVIDIA falls right back down. And at the same time, it could be that you remember Palantir is like a cancer in a company. So it's like hard to get in, and then they just keep spreading and spreading and spreading in the company. So I think it's more likely that you will get a sustained. So let's say NVIDIA gets as Dan Ives says, that it's the 96 moment. So let's say NVIDIA has 3 years, and then they will crash. And I think that Palantir at the same time might get a 10-15 year, like 30% growth every year, because it takes a long time to implement. It's like spreading through the company, and it just takes time to play out. And I think it's a much more stable and sustainable growth than the rest of the AI.
Okay, that's fair. Very, very fair. I think we're going to see Q4 growth. I mean, that guidance number is very important. Customer count is very important. And those two things, given the cockiness that the executives are walking around with, if we don't get to 30%, that's okay. I think at minimum 22, 25 is my guess. I agree with you, Vince. But below 20.
And by the way, the stock price has come down a lot, or has gone sideways a lot. So I don't know why, but I think that the market is also not expecting 30%, because yes, if the stock price would be at 22, it would be different, but we are at 16, the same place where we were in June 2023.
Guys, if you have lived through .com, I think you would be surprised to see when Jeff Bezos used to come and make statement, how the mainstream media will react. They will see this guy is nuts, because he will make statements like this. Okay, but he'll be laughing, he'll be very amicable in a way, and people say, oh yeah, he's just riding the wave, but he doesn't know what the shit he's doing. And for 15 years, okay, mainstream media kept bashing him and making jokes of him, and then before they realize, shit, we missed the whole deal. Okay, so my understanding is, you make cocky statements, please back it up with performance. And that's what Jeff Bezos has done. That's what Elon Musk has done. Okay, if you don't do it, then please don't make it. Okay. So if you have made it, now walk the talk.
Next topic. This is a fun one. This came out this week. I mean, this is just really, really cool. Palantir CEO Alex Karp is writing a book, or he's already wrote a book, and that book is going to be coming out sometime in 2024. I think it's really exciting. Obviously, as Palantir content creators, we get a lot to go into, get a lot deeper into what's happening. I think for Karp, his academic intellectualism makes him feel happier to write a book than to tweet out his thoughts, right? That's why he doesn't have a Twitter account. We've heard the arguments he said. It's a book that basically shits on Silicon Valley called The Technological Republic. I mean, all four of us can probably recite verbatim his arguments against why Silicon Valley sucks. So the book's not going to be that new to us, even though it's going to probably be a good read. But the arguments for the masses that believe that Silicon Valley is like the mecca of just like, amazing tech companies, to kind of educate them on what their role has been in regards to defense and why they've kind of failed the U.S. government. My question here, let's start with you, Arnie. Do you think this book is a really good branding play? And what do you think the implications of this book are in regards to the business of Palantir?
I think it is a very good branding play given the right time. If he made this 2 years ago, I think the market would have not been receptive enough. But now people start having doubts. People start seeing this. Okay, you were spreading ESG all over the world. Even the World Economic Forum was all about ESG here, by having a moral judgment on things. And when very bad things happen, they are in Silicon Valley, they're in the World Economic Forum, like no one wants to talk about the real issues. So I think this book is a real call out on not only the Silicon Valley, but all this world that pretends to be good, but when there is actually something to play on, everyone disappears. So I keep seeing this, like, as we also said, like this behavior tends to be too much, but it would be too much if it was not backed by actions. So Karp makes bold statements, but at the end of the day, he also acts, and he can't really stand people doing the opposite, talking and then disappearing. So I think we already know the essence of the book, but overall, at this time, given the fact that Palantir doesn't only speak but also acts, I think that's a very powerful branding, a branding that most of people will dislike. Also, as it happened with the standing by the side of Israel, many people disliked it. But for those of them that actually appreciate Palantir taking a stance, and I would say it should not come with surprise if you ever studied Palantir 3 minutes. For those of them who enjoy this corporate culture, I think that is a very bold statement that reinforces the brand.
Sachin, your thoughts on the book coming out?
So it's have you ever seen a guy who has written a book and say, I don't remember what I wrote in it? When you when you try to write a book, it's your identity, it's your thinking. You always wear it. You see, Vivek Ramaswamy was writing Woking, and then he was few years later he was like a Republican presidential candidate. I mean, like nominee. At least he was aspire for that. So the reason what happens that when somebody writes book, I mean, especially, I mean, not for money or something like that. That means there is a calling. And when there's a calling, that means whatever you're writing, there is a thinking going behind it. It's just not just a naive or not well thought out thing. So if he writes a book, we all know he's not going to write a book which is not provocative. It is going to be provocative. It is on a topic that is very sensitive. So there is going to be, so this book and the content that comes from it, and as we are moving into a reverse culturalization, I think this is going to be discussed a lot. Okay, so that means there is going to be a lot of discussion around his thinking and around Palantir after the book is out, and he is going to own it. Okay, so there is going to be a definite impact on company, and I believe positive, because a lot of people are, and nowadays, like if you see the people who are moderates and people who are centralist, they see, okay, we don't like Trump, but we don't like Biden also.
Right.
Okay, so a lot of people are actually looking at what the fuck is ongoing. I mean, both parties are, or both people are getting extreme and crazy on both sides. A lot of people want sanity. They want to listen things which make sense. Okay, so if he can deliver, I think he will create. See, he's going to write an intellectual book. That means he is going to create some sort of fan base for him. They say, yeah, I mean, this is what I think is right.
Right.
Okay. And just because people, I don't know how many of you know, this is a 1969 speech by Nixon. This is called a speech to silent majority.
Yep.
Okay. A lot of what is happening around to you may be overwhelming at time, but I mean, US has gone through a period before in 60s and 70s when Vietnam War was happening, and all the hippie culture and all those student, I mean, I don't know how much you know about 60s and 70s, but there was a cultural movement that time also. Okay. And that particular time when so when Richard Nixon was fighting the election, and I mean, he was not a person who was loved by many, and he gave a very famous speech, and he, in that speech on a national television, he said that he is trying to appeal to silent majority. What he was trying to say that there are a lot of people who are not saying on face that they think this is wrong, but they want to do something about it. And that is and you know, despite all everything, I mean, I'm not saying Nixon was a good guy or anything. I'm saying about a tactic here. That means somebody has to somewhere appeal to the people who want a product, who want a confirmation, but nobody is giving them. Like for example, in the politics, I mean, like we saw the case what happened in Argentina at this particular point. So the thing is, what he is writing, what he is telling is that Silicon Valley was supposed to be the pirates, was supposed to be the rebel, and that's how we collected, and we turned ourselves into a mafia.
Right.
Forget the product for a while. Big tech today is same as what big oil was, or what big tobacco was,
Yeah.
what big pharma is today. There is no difference. I mean, forget the product and the tactics. This is exactly what they do. So think about it. How much big tech is sensitive and lobbying to get AI regulations? Now, suppose you get a lot of AI regulation, what it does, that means no small company can go and do a startup in AI without following those regulations. So they literally control. This is exactly what big auto used to do. This is why for decades there was no new auto company. Okay, this is exactly what big tech is doing, and so at that point, so he's trying to bring that what is happening internally. A lot of time there's a discussion around, like we talk about diversity. What does it mean, diversity? Why do you need diversity? You need diversity because diversity bring different thoughts. And why? Because people from different environment and religion and races have different experience. That's the idea of diversity. The idea of diversity is not bring everyone together and then ask them to say same thing, do same thing, and live in a same way. That's not diversity. I know there are things where Silicon Valley has lost its way in many people's opinion. My understanding is that Alex Karp is one of that, and he thought that this can only be communicated in a bigger and larger discussion with a proper context, and to share that kind of message is a book, because you cannot work with Palantir without understanding Palantir, without understanding who these people are. Okay, everybody saw when in the 2009 when the movie came Social Networking. Okay, but why that movie is so important? Because that movie gave a lot of young people to think, okay, this is what happened and what Mark Zuckerberg did. They kind of understood the context, like what a startup is. Okay, how it is done and how do you seize the opportunity and the movement. And
Right.
you may not realize that a lot of startups and a lot of startup founders are actually kind of picked it from there. Okay, so it is I think I'm actually very pleased that he's writing, because more we need to know about him. He's running, it's not about investment, he's running a company which is very important in many contexts. Okay, we need to know who are these people are. Back to you guys.
I 1000% agree with you. I think, first of all, Karp has a PhD, right? So he's wrote plenty of theses and statements. He's known to write. He wrote the Oppenheimer op-ed for New York Times. So a book makes a lot of sense for him. Number two, I agree with Arnie that this is the right time to put it out. 2 years ago, it wouldn't make sense. But now you've got Ukraine and Russia. You've got Israel, Hamas. You've got upcoming China and Taiwan. And now the entire world, from the private sector in terms of the venture capital space, says, oh, we need to find the next Anduril, the next Palantir, the next SpaceX, right? We're looking for the next defense tech company. And then you've got public citizens like all four of us that are like, dude, what is this woke shit that is like being stuffed down our throat? Why do we have to believe that every single white person has privilege? Why do we have to believe that? And who's making us believe that that's the case? And I think Karp's speaking to that narrative. And I think this entire book is going to be speaking to that narrative, which is that all this shit has been done and has been encapsulated by corporate elites. The theme at WEF, I found out today because the Olin podcast was talking about this, was trust. That was the theme in Davos. So now I get why Karp kept referencing in the interviews why people don't trust the elites, because the entire theme at the summit was about trust. And so I think his argument about we need to have a broader understanding of geopolitical conflicts in the context of how technology can be applied and why Google doesn't want the Project Maven contract, that is what this book is going to be about. And I think it's going to be exciting. Vince, go ahead.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say I recently stumbled upon a YouTube video that explains the history of Anduril, and they have a lot of ex-Palantirians there. And that video actually made me understand Karp and Palantir a lot better, and appreciate them in a different way. Because it's so weird that you have the US government and the Western governments that are so powerful, they can lock us in our house because of the flu season. They can put us in $1 trillion of debt, and you withhold technology from them so that they are able to work better and come up, because there is not going to come any innovation from the government, and Alex Karp I don't think he was the first, but he's the first company leader that I know that started saying this, like, we need to help out the US government. We need to preserve the Western values from many viewpoints, so that it doesn't go and turn into an extreme, and so that we don't get taken over by other countries that are, doing things differently. And I actually started appreciating him in a much different way. And I think that this book is, just going to solidify that. Hopefully it will turn a lot more people onto, working with the West, helping the US government. And there's nothing wrong with being patriotic and supporting your government and helping your nation do better.
Yeah. Sachin, go ahead. You're going to say something?
See, guys, out of all four of us, I'm the only one who is in Asia. Okay, so I can say this, probably you guys cannot say this. See, in Asia, we do not need people from West to tell us how to live. And that is exactly what happens, is like when you see things, what are happening is, see, Asia has suffered from colonialism. Okay. So what is happening when we see things like this, a lot of thinking that comes here, that this is again a kind of a soft colonialism. People, they are telling us what to think, how to spend, how to live. Okay. A lot of people, and this is exactly, they are telling us they will, no, I mean, like,
Karp, or do you mean the wokeism?
The wokeism in general.
Yeah. We don't need that either in Europe.
Yeah. The thing is, you guys, I mean, if in West you criticize this, okay, I mean, there is a different kind of consequences. For me, a different type of the point is, like, a lot of time people say that, okay, we are worried India is using coal. I said, why you are worried about it? I said, because they are using coal. I said, okay, then give us something which is different from that. You want us to do something. Today in India, the energy consumption is 5 to 10% of what an average American use. Why an Indian cannot use 10 times more energy than America?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Why you are deciding somebody else? I think this is, like, for example, this is China's destiny to decide what China wants to do. This is India's destiny to decide what India wants to do. So thing is, like, when you talk to us in a way which is equal. Now, what is happening is, because these countries are becoming economic power, so the way you can influence them is different. Okay, like if you go to 1970s, it is very easy to buy an Indian politician by money, and you will see all those stories of people having Swiss account and all that, because in India there was no money. Nowadays you cannot buy an Indian politician with money because they are flooding with money. Okay, maybe in other countries, but not there. So how do you buy a politician? You need something different. How do you influence them? You need something different.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that the implication or the way that the world works is very different, the way you influence it. So people need to have things. Okay, do you ask me, like, I'm a big believer in renewables. I have said it several times. And my reasons for believing in renewables has nothing to do with climate. My idea is very simple. Like I said, I want Indians to use 10 times the energy what Americans are using, okay, as a patriotic Indian. And I know it cannot happen based on petroleum. We can never, because at this point, we import 86% of our petroleum needs from outside. Okay, so that means we need to move towards things which are very different. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is the way things are in East is different. I'm from India. I love India. Okay. I mean, I can do whatever a normal Indian can do. I live in Malaysia. I know people who are very passionate and very patriotic about Malaysia. They love their national companies and all like that. I go to Indonesia. People are very passionate about them. Same thing in Thailand. So this kind of culture that we have developed in West, that hate your country, hate your culture. Okay. You are the enemy. Okay. I'm not a proponent of that. Okay. You live in a piece of a land. You follow that culture, and this is what is happening is that, I mean, if there is something wrong, you go and work around it, and that's how Silicon Valley also started. But I think the point what Peter Thiel has made in past, or what Alex Karp has made, that we have taken this discussion in an entirely different direction. It was supposed to be a constructive and transformative. Now it has become a in a more like a what do you say, like the Python constricts you. It is turning into that. And it's funny that when you watch all these dystopian movies, and in these dystopian movies they say that one faction which is representing the powerless, actually replace them, replace the powerful. But it turns out it is even more sinister than the previous one, and turning out that it is exactly how things are playing sometimes in life. Okay, so it is a provoking discussion, and somebody has to start it somewhere, as it happened in 60s, 70s, and a lot of time. I think I mean, at this point, Silicon Valley has a lot of money, they have a lot of power, and they are literally telling everyone that we don't want to discuss with you, we just tell you and you do it.
Right.
Okay, that's not acceptable. Okay, back to you.
I would agree. Let's end it out on this. I did an interview this week with popular YouTuber Meet Kevin. He manages 40 million bucks, bought I think 80,000 shares of Palantir. He has some really interesting comments on the company. I just want to play 2 minutes of it and get your thoughts on it. His core point is around LLMs being commoditized and Palantir being the core place enterprises are going to go. So let's listen to this for 2 minutes and then we'll talk.
Stocks. Palantir.
Oh yeah, I like Palantir.
Why did you buy Palantir at $18.83?
Yeah. So Palantir, I think, is the only profitable AI play that exists. I think Microsoft is like faux AI.
Really? You think Copilot is faux AI?
Yeah, I think most of it is gimmicky. It's sort of like label it on and attach it on. Like it's like bolt-on AI.
Right.
So, but to really get think about this. What was AI before AI was AI? It was big data.
Correct.
Who was doing big data analysis? Palantir.
Right.
So Palantir didn't even have to change anything. Palantir is just like, we're just going to keep doing what we do, which is basically now AI. So it's, commercial AI for freight, shipping, logistics, or policing, or scheduling, government, whatever, right? You've got everything. Intelligence. It's fantastic. So that's just like AI. That's always been AI. Then you've got bolt-on AI, which is like, yay, page, like your, Microsoft Word or whatever can now include, whatever Bard or Google Bard. Copilot would be the more Microsoft one, and you got GPTs.
Right.
I don't think that these and Grok with Twitter or X, I don't think that these competitive services are anything more than having like a voice assistant. They're going to become so monopolized that there's not really going to be a premium. It's kind of like you have it or you're a loser. So in other words, you're not going to get an incrementally greater amount of profit because you have it, because everybody has an LLM.
Right.
So I don't think LLMs are where the money is. I know the GPT revolution was pretty wild when it was like AI in the hands of consumers. And there are a lot of people who pay $20 a month, myself included. Do I think GPT, for example, is worth $100 billion? Hell no.
Right.
Like all of these are going to compress in valuation. There'll be an AI valuation crash. I'd much rather be in the chips or in Palantir than in like the nonsense AI that I see. I think Microsoft valuation's ridiculous. I think it's just a safe place to say we have AI exposure. Salesforce is another one of those.
Sachin, your thoughts on that? Microsoft is fake AI. Companies overvalued. People just want to pull money into it to be safe because they branded AI. They have OpenAI. OpenAI is overvalued at $100 billion, and Palantir is the place you would rather be. Cumulatively, what do you think about that argument?
I think my answer is in the simple 5 bullets. Okay, Microsoft is leading AI because they have partnership with OpenAI. Okay, so that means there is an external partner. Second thing is all these products they have, which is Copilot and ChatGPT API. And I mean, if you see it, what they're telling, okay, now I can make PowerPoint for you. So ask us a very simple question. There is a company which is telling a small country in war front that you have limited weapons. How do you optimize your weapons? Okay, for better efficiency, versus a company that is telling you, oh, let me make some PowerPoint for you. So that's the level of skill we are talking about. Okay, that is 2 part. Third part is, see, Microsoft, like I have said before, it's the world's biggest commoditizer. They make everything at the end of the day in a format where it is usable, but just nobody likes it. Like you saw what
Like
happened with Skype and MS Teams.
Everyone uses Teams, but it sucks, right?
So okay, and so that's a third part. So thing is, that's their version of the view that this is how things to be done. So that is the third part. The fourth part is, see, they are never in business of enterprise to give you a finished product. Their idea is that we will give you a pass, we will give you a bricks, okay, but you make things of your own. Because that's what big tech does. They don't give you a finished product. Okay, which is expecting, that means you need partners, and partners are small. That means you also expect that somebody like on the other side client knows what they are doing. Okay, and then nobody knows what they are doing, so then they bring someone like Accenture or some other companies to, okay, can you tell us what to do? So at the end of the day, what happens is that you get a circus. Okay, eventually if you practice enough, you can make a circus and acrobatics work, but not everybody can do it. So the thing is, you want that or you want something finished. Okay, how many people actually assemble their PC, or do they buy finished laptop and all? Did you assemble your Mac that you bought just from it? No. So at the end
No.
of the day, you also have to see how people consume products. Okay, last and not the least, I think this is where I slightly disagree with Meet Kevin and have a different opinion in a way. See, what criticism he had on OpenAI is true, but it is also true that OpenAI has pivoted a lot since it started. If you use OpenAI today, okay, the chat GPT and the way the marketplace is expanding and the way they are extending in enterprise, it's infectious. And the reason for that is because they were able to tell the world first time what a consumable AI product looks. How do you consume
but is that
AI?
worth 100 billion
See,
at this stage?
they
right
have
now?
a see they have a premium because they created this euphoria. If you, like I said, valuation is always in the eyes of beholders, depending on where they are going. If you ask me today in terms of simple, like in order to have a $100 billion valuation, somebody at least need to have $5 billion revenue. They don't have it.
Right.
But are they going to have it in by the end of 2024? Most likely, yes. Okay, so I give you a very simple example. Okay, I'm telling you that Palantir will have a $20 billion free cash flow by the end of 2030. So how do you going to value Palantir now? The free cash flow they have today or the free cash flow they are going to have in 2030? And that's the trick with the valuation. So if you take the case of 2030, 20 billion free cash flow, and you say at that particular time, okay, I'm saying that the PE has to, for this company, has to be 15. So 20 into 15 is 300 billion. Okay, and if you take 10 to 12% discounting as of today, then 4-6 year discounting, Palantir has to be valued somewhere between 100 to 120 billion as of today. Is it valued like that? It is not valued like that, because the view is based on the 2030 on that part. Okay, now that what happens if somebody, or let's say mass market, has this view, so they are not valuing it at 120 or 130, but they start valuing it something like 70 or 80 billion.
Right.
Then what happens, that people who are doing a simple DCF cash flow right now based on what they have, they will say the company is expensive. The question is it? Because it is based on the view what will be in 2030. So that's the view in case of OpenAI. OpenAI valuation is driven by the future metrics.
Right.
Okay. In case of Palantir valuation is driven by the current metrics, and the future metrics are been discounted a lot, which in my view is a mistake. Because when you talk about having a larger solutions moving forward or larger clients moving forward, Palantir has a better chance. So is it a right valuation? There is no right answer for it. Okay, because it is driven by a future view where more weightage has been given what will happen in future. In case of Palantir, more weightage has been happening what has happened in last quarter. So that's the difference. Back to you guys.
Arnie, agree with me, Kevin, that Microsoft's fake, Palantir is real.
Well, I would not define fake, but I agree with the underlying idea that these models are already in the process of saying, okay, it was a wow, now it is already, it is one of these potentially KLLMs that just become an input for where the value is created. And I think here is the big difference between what the venture capital world is doing, what like also Microsoft is pursuing, this idea of models, but at the end of the day of chats, while Palantir is the only one truly hitting the point of using these models, these KLLM models, to actually deliver business outputs. So it is clear for Palantir that the model is just a tool that enters in a bigger framework with the goal of delivering business output, be that more revenues, be that more efficiency, less cost. And this connects with what Karp mentioned about so far LLMs seem more self-pleasuring tools. So you send the input, the model gives you an output, a poem, poetry, whatever, makes you feel gratified. You are actually doing something useful for your company, but at the end of the day, the output of a company is what matters. So a model, a chat, doesn't automatically translate into value. So this is the big difference I see from the narrative Microsoft is pursuing with OpenAI, which is clearly a very different product from Palantir AP. But that is where the attention is. And I think what Sachin mentioned previously about you want AI to essentially replace the low, I was going to say, the low quality work with bots. That is where the real value accrues, because a chat gives you an output, which is fine, helps you have like incremental gains, but having a bot that substitutes all your not really intellectual work better than you, that is not marginally incremental work, that is transformative. So while I see right now, once the breakthrough has been done with OpenAI, everything I'm seeing now is more incremental. And also, Chamath at the All In podcast explicitly said that essentially last week he shared, I already feel these models are commoditized. Where the real value accrues is where you organize many models, you ensure the compliance, you actually ensure
Palantir,
that
basically.
that was a perfect pitch. Like, probably we could not make a better pitch for AAP. Actually, I encourage Palantir people to actually take those sentences and brand them as theirs because that was the perfect pitch for AAP.
Sachin, go ahead.
Guys, I think sometimes it's very difficult to wrap your hand around it. So I think it is good to see some analogy. See, today it's very easy for you to think that Amazon can deliver on the same day. Okay. Now, if you go back, okay, in 1990, it was not like that. Why Amazon become something like this? Because they're starting collecting data on their customers. Then they're starting also collecting data how the trucks are moving around. Okay, if you remember, they did a very big exercise at some point of time where they wanted to map the routes to optimize the routes of trucks, because they had a focus that we want to deliver our client cheapest and fastest, because if we can do that, that's a moat for us. Amazon is not big because they were the first e-commerce company. Is that how they did it? Okay, so when we talk about commoditization of data, okay, this is a bit implicit. Okay, you can have models and all, but nobody is going to get the same output from that. Okay, it is always about getting insight, and AI is not about commoditizing model. AI is about getting insights from the model. Okay, so somebody who's building model also, and this is what people need to understand, that AIP is focused on insights, operational insights, actionable insights. So the someone who can give more actionable insights, okay, that's the better product. And that's where we have to focus it. You remember like how much difference, because they try to think from Amazon point of view. Okay, people will say, I mean, I had the next day delivery. Why the company has to go and deliver in one day? It doesn't make sense. Think from Amazon point of view. When you are delivering in 2 days versus 1 day, that means your cash cycle is actually shortened by 50%. The moment you recognize revenue, at what point you are recognizing revenue? You are recognizing revenue. Okay, so I buy something, I pay cash to Amazon. Okay, Amazon has to hold this money. He has to pay the supplier later, but the revenue is not recognized. Revenue will be partially recognized probably, but once the product is delivered. So Amazon has to wait 1 day to actually recognize that revenue. Now you doing in the same day. That means within the same day, the revenue is recognized. And then these numbers actually reflect when the earnings are coming in. So yes, it fucking makes sense when somebody tries to do it, because that's how you are going to value a company, what you see in the earnings. Okay, so yeah, models can be commoditized. Okay, like for example, Google buys search data from Apple. Why somebody else, why Microsoft doesn't go, okay, we don't care, but we also want to buy some data from you or something like that? Okay, because Google is not buying just because that it's about the data. It's also about like, okay, we know we can serve your customer better, and if you don't have Google on Safari, your customers are going to complain to you. So the product they are delivering is more important at the end of the day, and that's why, I mean, there's a lot of discussion which is happening about commoditizing models. See, it's not about, the idea is not about commoditizing model. Idea is always about getting actionable insights, and that is the difference between big data versus AI. It's not about building models anymore. It's about doing things, and it's about doing things better. And that's why AI has to be taken slightly differently in context with how the big data has been commoditized.
But
Back
so
to you
far,
guys.
we are still in the early stages where the focus seems more on building the model, isn't it? Like we know that at the end of the day, what really matters is the output. But the question is this already being really perceived?
I guess that's what the market's going to decide, right? And that's ultimately
Because
what we're-
if we waited like the real results, I think Palantir would not deserve the valuation that is currently at. So my perspective, and I could be absolutely wrong, but so far Palantir is seen as just a nice company. So it went from being a meme to being a trash to now being an okay company. But I think market is not really seeing this is not an okay company. This is a truly transformative company for the clients and also for itself. Because personally, what we saw from last year, where Palantir went from being cash negative to very free cash flow positive to becoming gap profitable while also increasing growth, like all this sequence in a very little period of time is like whoa. So for those of whom doesn't really look at the metrics per se, but tries to understand how it is possible that you have this transformation of the metrics, you see that Palantir is not a normal good company. There are many good normal companies like Snowflake, ServiceNow. I think if you focus not much on the change, this is also what Shyam says, that Palantir doesn't really focus on the first derivative. The first derivative is the change you see, but you focus on the second order derivative. So how much you increase the rate of change. So the rate of change of the rate of change. If you give a lot of weight to this, you see that Palantir is actually way ahead. So far, market sees Palantir as just a nice company. I believe we are facing a transformative company that requires much more than a 30, 40p price to free cash flow, which is what the market is currently pricing.
Let's end it off with Vince. Your thoughts on what Kevin said?
Yeah, I think that I agree with him, because what's very interesting is you look at the value that you get out of ChatGPT. And I think on this pod, we have said that Palantir has a 10% take rate. So that means that if they have a 2 billion revenue, that means that they've unlocked over 20 billion value at customers, you know? And I wonder if you would have a similar number for ChatGPT. I feel that it's been a party trick. But do you guys think that it's comparable, that people have gotten 20 billion value out of ChatGPT? Because I'm curious what you think, because in my opinion, it's not even in comparison. I think ChatGPT is a party trick, and it will only become usable once it becomes like this Rabbit, you know, this machine.
When there's hardware attached, I think you're saying two things. Unless it's attached to hardware, it's a commodity, or, which we saw, they changed the guidelines for military the other day. They silently did that, right? Maybe the enterprise or the military needs to get it for it to really make a lot more money?
Yeah, no, I meant more that this product demo that they did at CES, that the guy said that like, what's the best way for me to get to this point? And then this, I think it was called Rabbit mission. Yeah. And then it basically like set up Uber so that he just had to approve it, you know, like that's actual real value. But asking ChatGPT to, you know, like, can you please write this tweet for me? And then it writes it, and then you copy and paste into like, it doesn't even, it's a very thin product, only handles one really thing, but it's not really actionable. Whereas Palantir is the only real AI that gets stuff done in the actual physical universe where things really happen, and it really unlocks value for companies. So I really agree with this, that in that sense, OpenAI is way overvalued and Palantir is way undervalued.
So the question is basically, is OpenAI delivering more value, actual value unlocked to the world than Palantir is currently doing? What do you think?
Exactly. That was
So yeah, so let me give you, I mean, like, see, if you want to compare, and if I have to take a very simple example, see, the difference between OpenAI and Palantir is difference between playing Call of Duty at your computer versus being on ground in Afghanistan and Iraq. Actually, that's the difference. Okay, both have their own utility, but the difference is real.
Meaning one is like fake AI and the other one is real AI.
No, it's not like fake AI. It's how the product is consumed. Product has a limited consumption. It's not AI product. It's a, see, again, and the AI, the definition itself is, it's a product that does something. If you ask ChatGPT that draw me an image, it will draw you an image, okay, in pixels. But if you ask ChatGPT that I want you to control this 3D printer and do this, and probably it cannot do that part that yet. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Like, if you are playing a Call of Duty on, yeah, you get some adrenaline rush. At the end of the day, it's a game. There is a, I mean, like, it does this much. But if you are a Navy SEAL and you are in that mission where you have to go and kill Osama bin Laden, that's a whole different thing. You need real things that works in real life, because you only have one chance. So that the bar of excellence is very high, and that is the difference thing. Okay, so for example, okay, now you take the case of ChatGPT, and the ChatGPT, you are asking things, it is answering you, because unless somebody will be looking into manuals, somebody will be looking into Google search, so it is doing a lot of work which is helpful for people. But if you tell ChatGPT, can you repair it for me? It cannot. Okay, but now tomorrow you have robots and everything. You want something which can actually do it. Okay, now that's what I mean by operationalizing thing, and that's where AIP is a bit unique. Okay, it can, I don't know how many of you have actually noticed, if you see the AIP demos, there are actually demos that in which the engineer is telling it to do things. Can you do this gas lift optimization for me? So a lot of people, you don't know what the gas lift optimization is, but what that AIP engineer, when it does, it is actually telling that there is a gas that you can inject in the reservoir. That means there is an actual pump, there is pressure which reservoir to be injected, the walls has to be open, there is what we call like there are IoT sensors, but it is actually sending the commands and the strategy and the sequence how it is to be done in the field. It is actually doing it. So both things have their utility. Okay, that's my view. I could be wrong. I mean, like, I'm not saying take my word for it, make your own view. This is how I'm making my view. I mean, there are people who love Call of Duty. I love Call of Duty, but is playing Call of Duty is same to be a Navy SEAL and to actually being in a situation in Iraq and Afghanistan or somewhere else? It's different. Because I'm a play Call of Duty, am I a veteran? No, I'm not. I'm just a avid COD player. To be a veteran, you have to be an army, and ask Chris what different things he has done. So that is a different. What do you want? So what does a company want? There are a lot of companies who just, for example, want somebody to talk to their customer, and for them, ChatGPT is good. It's not a big task, and there will be so many other products. There is, at some point, the moat will decrease. Moat will based on marketplace and the accessibility. But at some point of time, if somebody comes to you and somebody tells, Amit, I will give you a software that will increase your odds of success by 20% in stock market, you would buy it.
Yeah.
20% edge is pretty serious. Now somebody is telling you that I can give you an edge which can give you a 3% cost advantage over your peers. So 3% doesn't look big, like we discussed a lot of time. But remember, the 3% over what time? We say 3% over your production cycle or your production optimization cycle or your monthly budget. 3% over budget is like, it's on compounding basis, it is 45-48% per year. That's huge.
Right.
You see, Call of Duty
Okay, so
is self-gratifying, as Karp mentioned.
Right.
yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that when people say about, when you talk about these numbers, why we think like this? We think like this because numbers is what that are coming in earnings, and because they come like in quarter and in a year, our mind is think that these numbers are applicable over it. No, you make 1% change, even 0.1% increment, but that increment is repeated 50 times a year. That's a whole different thing. And it's not about just compounding. It removes a lot of bottlenecks in the system. Okay, that means how much debt you are raising from banks in the short time. What is the length of your credit cycle? Okay, how you are paying your customers. Okay, how much capital you have to invest in new projects when timely it is needed. So in terms of a dynamic setting in a business where you have to make thousands of decisions throughout the day, okay, the product like AIP is very different. Chat will not cut it. Okay, chat has a specific purpose, which is chat is a specific. I agree with Code Strap. It has a specific purpose. It does, and so it should not be used more than that. Okay, but yeah, I mean, it has some purpose for sure. I mean, I would agree on that part.
For consumers, there's a lot of purpose, right? For us in our everyday life, but for enterprises, it's not. That's not what AI really is.
Yeah. So my point is, like, what happens is that on Fin to 8, and we try to be very binary, that all this is shit and all this is gold. But I mean, life is a little bit more nuanced at times. Okay, see, we have to give credit to ChatGPT for capturing the imagination and making a consumable product. That's what it did. Okay, and a lot of people like it. I mean, I like it. I do a lot of things with it at times. Okay, but if I ask to build a serious business and serious operations, it cannot do that. And but what is happening? So somebody has to do it. But somebody, if you make 1% over a billion, what is better? Making 1% over a billion or making 100% over $100? At the end of the day, in related terms, you can talk about it, but in absolute terms, 1% over 1 billion is a bigger number to make an impact. Okay, so a product that can appeal to people who have larger money, larger problem, complex problem, more impact based, AIP is a far apt solution. Okay, ChatGPT is a situation like being in romance. You are in romance, but are you going to get married or not? Okay, being AIP is let's get married, and that's a difference. Okay, and not even in romance, I would say ChatGPT is more like a crush at times.
I would think on Karp's comment about self-pleasuring, LLMs are masturbation and AIP is sex. I think that's
well said. Well said.
The Palantir needs to tweet that out tomorrow. They will get a lot of retweets if they tweet that out tomorrow. If Karp said that, which I think he would have said that, like I think the whole room would have been like, "That's crazy. That'd be awesome."
You know who would dare to tweet such a tweet? It would be Musk. He would dare to tweet that after the laptop tweet.
Yeah, he does not care at all. This was great, guys. This was awesome, Sachin. Thank you for spending your time with us. Hope you guys really enjoyed him. Sachin doesn't come on too often because he's a very busy guy, so really appreciate you're here. This was basically the podcast before earnings, so thank you for being here and giving all your thoughts. We'll have earnings February 5th, and everyone's Twitter is in the description. Please make sure to follow them there. And we'll see you guys next week on Palantir Weekly. That's it. Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye. Enjoy.